All right, guys and girls. Mike Abbott, Steel Rose Metal Co. Thought I'd hop on here and go over one of my favorite things. And my favorite things, if you know me, is hammers. As you can see behind me, I love hammers. I buy them anytime I go out of town. I swing by every antique store I can on the way. New hammers are fine. I just prefer old stuff, So, anyways, I wanted to talk about hammers. Talk about the difference in them. Body hammers, right? Which are great. Everybody should have one. This is from Matco. Of course, I like my Snap-on hammers, but if you know anything about hammers, these things are about $60, $70 a piece. Snap-on, Matco, they're a little bit cheaper. You'll commonly pay $50 for a hammer. Some, the sky's the limits. I tend to buy them from antique stores. Normally, you can find them a little bit cheaper. Like I found this one in Georgia, which this is a fender bumping hammer or fender hammer. It's commonly called. I won't tell you guys what we normally call it in metal business. But then I also collect random hammers like this, which to most people does not, I think this is actually a Mason hammer for brick and that type of stuff. But I commonly use it for caulking or corking, depending on who you're talking to, hammer, which basically is this hammer, and then you use that edge, right, in the corner of a piece of metal, and then I hit it with another hammer to tighten it up, right, as a corking tool or caulking tool. This one the same thing. I use this in corners and edges, 90 degrees, or 45s that just aren't laying down flat enough. Same thing, hit it. Then it's also got the flip side of that. Of course, with hitting on these hammers, you're gonna have to dress them pretty regularly. Also slappers. Now they sell slappers. I don't like the slappers that they sell because they're just thin and cheap. This one I picked up at a different antique store. I wanna say it was in the middle of nowhere. I think it was Alabama, might have been Kentucky, not sure, but this is a nice heavy duty slapper. It looks, I believe it's always been a slapper, I really do, but it looks like somebody had just a super gnarly chisel and turned that into a slapper. Slappers are handy. If you don't use them, you should. And I also have this homemade slapper, which I like a lot. Now this is made out of a wood file, right? Which is good for aluminum. You can see I do aluminum filing a lot with this thing. If you know anything about aluminum and steel, if you use a steel file on aluminum, it'll clog the file up. A wood file has a tendency to have larger grooves in it, which is better for the aluminum. This is actually just bent with a torch. That's all that is. Gene Winfield came and did a class, and he turned me on to that. Now the edge that's down, try and get you to see, is rounded, right? And then he claims that this will help you shrink stuff out. I believe it to be true to an extent. I struggle with if you've ever used shrinking hammers. I've had a couple. I normally grind the meat tenderizer thing off of it because they seem to just make a mess of the metal. It doesn't ever really shrink it, which we can get into that later. But I wanted to bring up my favorite hammer, and I made this hammer years and years and years ago. And I love this hammer. You can see I beat on the back of that one regularly. Occasionally I'll bring it down to a point, right, to use it for a corking tool, with a nice round head on it. And if you can see this hammer, basically what this is, and I intend on making a few different variations of this, I just haven't gotten around to it. So all this hammer is a cheap claw hammer you can pick up at any junk store, right? But steel, right? Just like this one. And then what I do is I chop the head off up here, and then I take railroad spikes and I TIG weld those railroad spikes onto it. in various different shapes and forms. You can arch it, you can make the back longer, the head shorter. You can chop the railroad spike off and put double ended for 2 round ends, and then trim your contours. And the reason why I bring that up is you don't have to pay $1 million for a hammer, especially with metal shaping. Body hammers are good, but they're good for kind of lighter work. Sometimes you need something that'll hit hard with a rounded head on it, which is perfect, is what this is. You can really get after it with this hammer. Like I say, it's one of my favorite hammers. I made this a lot of years ago, and I use it regularly. I mean, it gets used all day, every day. As you can see by the shape of the friction tape, which of course the handle is like a rubber orange thing. Kenner hammers are good. I have those. I don't want to talk about just every hammer that I have in my toolbox because, like I say, I'm a hammer fanatic. But absolutely, get yourself railroad spike claw hammer, make something cool. Which I want to bring to my other point, since we talked about Georgia, is we will be having a chop class. It'll be at Kennedy Performance and Fabrication. That's in Bethlehem, Georgia. We'll be there with them, my buddy Chad from Lucky Tramp Customs, and we'll be putting on a 2-day chop class. We'll technically be there probably 3 days. I think there's a pre-party Friday night. I'm not 100% sure. Lunch is included both days in that chop class. I'll put a flyer up on the screen just so you can check it out. But get signed up, get in touch with Kennedy Performance and Fabrication. Look them up online. They have a website. They're on all the social media platforms. They're on YouTube. So go get in contact with him and get signed up for the class. It is March 23rd and 24th, 2024. You only got a couple of months to get signed up for that thing. So get on there, get signed up. It'll absolutely be worth it. We'll be chopping a car live. We'll be showing different techniques. I plan on bringing my Sosa power hammer. We'll get that thing anchored down at his shop and just kind of go over some power hammer techniques, English wheel, and chopping a car, bracing, the whole 9 yards, get it all tacked together in 2 days. So you don't want to miss it. Kennedy Performance Fabrication, check them out, March 23rd and 24th. Thanks, bye.